On we go to example number 2 on today's notes. And in this example, we are going to be graphing the data that we pulled in example number 1 from Tamira's Memorial Day trip. So we're going to be looking at it in these 5 segments. So we're going to have to graph these 5 segments separately, but in the end, it's going to make one complete graph. So let's just start by graphing segment A. So in segment A, we had that Tamira was like driving away from home at a constant speed for 70 miles, and she did this for 1 hour's time. So when we look at our axes, on the bottom axis, on our x-axis, we've got elapsed time. So this is in hours. So we know that when we first left our house, we hadn't elapsed any time, so it would have been at 0. And then the distance is on our y-axis, so the distance that she traveled would have also been 0. Sorry, I was having issues with being able to graph it. So then when we look at an hour later, it says that she had driven at a constant rate and she was now 70 miles away from home. So that point is going to be at 1 hour and 70. And then to create a line, I'm going to go to Shapes and Insert Line. And I'm going to connect from this dot up to this dot. And that is my segment for A. Go back to drawing, and I'm going to label that A. So that one is finished. Now I'm going to go on to example for segment B. And in segment B, it looks like for a length of 2 hours, we were completely stopped. So our time is going to continue to keep going, but the distance is not. So we're just going to have a flat line. So I'm going to switch over to orange, and this is going to go from 1 hour for 2 hours, so that would be until 3 hours. We're just completely stopped. So I'm going to go to Shapes to draw a line. There's an insert line, and I can just connect these. Oops. I'm going to erase that because I'm going to make it orange to represent segment B. Shape, orange. So that is my segment B. And again, it's flat because even though time was passing and it continued to go this direction, we weren't moving any distance closer or further away, so it just stayed completely flat. Now let's look at segment C. So I did B. So segment C says that just for 15 minutes, we moved further away from home for 10 more miles. So I'm really going to zoom in on this one because we don't have a very far distance at all. So in fact, just 15 minutes. So down here at the bottom, to go from 3 to 4, we've got like 1 bar in between. And that indicates that that would be like a half hour per each segment. And we're not even going for a half hour. We're only going for 15 minutes. So we're going to be going about halfway across. And then we're going up to 80, which is going to be right here. So that, like I said, is a very tiny amount of time. So that is our C value. And it doesn't feel like it's very much, especially when you look at the rest of the graph. But that's all the more that it's describing. And then we can look at part D. So on part D, it says for 1 hour, we're stopped again. So, oh yeah, this is when we stopped to eat. So if we look at the bottom, remember, we're not going to be changing our distance. We're going to be staying. So we're starting here. Oops, I'm still on the shape drawing. But for just 1 hour, even though we're starting halfway, so we would need to go till the halfway mark here to go for 1 hour. For segment D. And go ahead and use these notes as a chance to practice using that line shape instead of just drawing it in and not being maybe specifically perfectly straight. Just for practice, try using the shapes tool and then going to that insert line. Okay, so finally for our segment E, it doesn't tell us how long, it just tells us that the entire trip altogether took 10 hours. And that after 10 hours, we took a constant speed for 80 miles back home. So we're going all the way back home, but I know that it took me 10 hours. So I'm going to come down here to 10 and I'm going to put my ending point. And we did start back here at where we left off. So from here, we're going to take a constant speed. So it's just going to be a steady line going in the direction of here to here. And drawing, this represents segment E. So when you look at this graph, use the information to make a graph of the data. This is what it will look like. I want you to think about a few things. Does it look how you thought it would look? Maybe think about what surprised you. And definitely if you have any questions, go ahead and make comments. You can do the video comment, the text comment, or just write it on there. But I definitely feel like there's some stuff on here that might be surprising to you.